The newest installment into the ever-growing genre of biopics based on famous musicians has hit theaters around the world, and this time, director Baz Luhrmann has set his sights on one of the most iconic and influential entertainers of all time, Elvis Presley. But is this film able to differentiate itself from other movies in this genre and live up to the name of its subject matter? Let's find out. I have to admit, it was kind of a weird feeling hearing that this movie was being announced, because in one regard, it's a complete no-brainer. After the financial success of Bohemian Rhapsody, it really seemed inevitable that we would get a film about the so-called king of rock and roll. But on the other hand, it really was kind of an odd choice for me, and it still is. And that's really because in recent years, the name Elvis Presley doesn't have the same resonance nowadays as it did in decades past. Because in today's day and age, a time where some of us try to uplift the voices of those whose impact has been lessened or even forgotten over time, particularly Black voices, Elvis Presley has kind of fallen out of favor in recent years, especially for a younger generation, my generation. I think a lot of people my age, even a bit older, absolutely, yes, recognize the impact that Elvis had on music and history of rock and roll in regards to his stage presence, the merchandising side of things, the marketing of music, in addition to the fact that he has inspired countless musicians and entertainers across the world. I think that's primarily what he is recognized as in more of a contemporary context rather than the music that he created. So, for me, I think if this film were to be made, I believe that it's important to show different sides of Elvis Presley, the man, rather than just the entertainer, that we as an audience might not be familiar with. Something a bit more introspective or layered and a deeper portrayal of this man beyond just kind of the character of Elvis, something that pretty much really anybody can do like a halfway decent impression of. And unfortunately with this film, beyond the packaging and the delivery of this movie, that's really the only distinguishing feature of this film. In fact, aside from the directorial flair implemented here, the film is no more memorable than any of the music biopics that have been made in the past 15 years, and believe me, there are more than a few. And despite the fact that Austin Butler does give a good performance as the titular role, yes, of course, he's really good in the film, great in fact, and he offers a performance that goes beyond just doing the mannerisms and expressions that we as the audience would typically attribute with Elvis. And he seemed to truly embody this role in a way that may have even permanently impacted him beyond the filming of this movie. But when you have a genre that truly is filled with actors giving equally as good performances, and the fact that what I just said about Austin Butler and his performance in this film can be said about most actors who have played a role in this genre, it really just starts to feel like, yeah, they're good. Might even get an Oscar nomination, but so what? Which is really kind of the most succinct way that I can summarize my thoughts regarding this film is, so what? Because everything that is revealed about this character in this movie is very publicly known information, and this movie doesn't really do a lot more than just show it. It portrays it on screen, and it acknowledges that this happened, but it doesn't dive really any deeper than just simply bringing it up. And a concrete example of this is the acknowledgement of how Elvis Presley was influenced by Black musicians and R&B just as a genre. Yes, the film explicitly and multiple times, yes, acknowledges the fact that the music that Elvis Presley loved and then created and gifted to the world originated from Black people. The film states that, as I said, multiple times throughout its runtime. But the unfortunate reality of this film is that it really just doesn't do much more than just state that fact. There is no commentary to be found regarding these ideas of cultural appropriation. Yes, it is explicitly stated that the reason Elvis was even given a chance in the first place is because he was white. And there were musicians who were doing the exact same thing, even to a further degree, but were not given a chance like he was. Which is not to say that this lack of depth regarding this one issue issue, completely ruins the movie, but it's made even more egregious by the fact that this film is sorely lacking in really any depth regarding its portrayal of Elvis, beyond, again, ideas and knowledge and information about him that is incredibly, very well publicly known knowledge, especially so in relationship to his manager, Colonel Tom Parker. And I think that most admirers of this movie would even claim that that is where the depth of this film can be found. How Elvis's, deep desire and love of entertainment opened him up to the opportunity to be manipulated by this man who he trusted and who quite literally worked him to death. So although, yes, of course, this is an incredibly important piece of history to be acknowledged in the regards to the legacy of Elvis Presley, of course, yes. But it's not only the fact that this information has been so well publicized over the past 50 years that I feel like, one, a lot of audiences probably know this to be true, and the film doesn't really offer any new or surprising or a unique perspective on this information, but it's made even worse because the idea of the evil, corrupt, money-hungry manager who takes advantage of the artists is also something that can be found in most music biopics. It is a plot point in most, if not all of them. So the fact that this film spends so much of its runtime shedding a light on this relationship between the two of them, I think it's really lessened because it's pretty treaded ground in most other music biopics, even if it is especially egregious in this case. And that's really what is so frustrating about this movie, beyond the, pageantry of Baz Luhrmann's presentation. This film is just as forgettable as any other movie in this genre, and that directorial flair from Baz Luhrmann, I think, is something that I've seen a lot of people point to as one of the primary issues of the film, as well as an equally large camp of people saying that it's one of the best things about this movie. And as typically happens with most discourse in the film community, I kind of fall somewhere in the middle. I think Baz Luhrmann is able to give this film a spark that is unique stylistically for this genre especially. The film has so much energy behind it. The entire movie moves such at a kinetic pace, and not for nothing is a film that with that pace is portraying one of the most recognized entertainers in the history of music, someone that electrified their audience, and this film matches that energy that Elvis had. However, with that also comes some consequences. For one, it is precisely because this film has that kinetic energy to it that I personally never felt moved by this film emotionally. It's moving at such a rapid pace that I just felt like it kept going and going and going and going, that I never was able to establish an emotional foothold for this film. And although, yeah, I do completely understand the urge that Baz Luhrmann has to make this film as kinetic as it's and as energetic as its subject matter, but I think it really does come at a cost of a lot of the emotion that this film could potentially offer in telling the story, which unfortunately really does just kind of sour the entire experience for me, and again just makes me wonder why this story is being told, beyond the fact that Bohemian Rhapsody made a lot of money and it won an Oscar, because I found myself to be completely unmoved emotionally by this movie. It offers nothing new to say about its subject matter, and instead just shows the audience things that I think most of us really already know to be true. Not only beyond that, but it completely lacks any identifying factors beyond some of the style that is implemented in the film to distinguish itself from really any other movie in this genre. And the more that we really get of these music biopics, I'm just constantly reminded of the beauty of Spencer, which came out last year, which is the biopic about Princess Diana. And yeah, I know that that's not a musician and an influential musician, but I would just so much rather see a movie like that is quiet and spends time with this character over the course of a couple of days. And because of that, you're able to get this really accurate snapshot of their relationship and how they're viewed publicly and their legacy, rather than a film that just continues to follow the same plot points that we've been getting for decades now. I'm so tired. I'm so sick of these movies, guys. I do hope, though, that those who love Elvis Presley and his music means a lot to them, I hope this film is able to deliver on what they would hope to see from this film. But for myself, someone who, doesn't have a lot of reverence for the name Elvis Presley, I just kind of found myself unmoved by a film that frankly isn't very moving. So did you guys see Elvis? I'd love to know what you thought about it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you liked today's video. And if you did, you can click on that link down below so you can subscribe to my channel and see more movie reviews and movie related things. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching and see you next time.